So I'm going to do something you probably never have seen me do, and that's not preach the gospel passage out of the gospel reading, because we're doing our S.T.E.P.S series, and this week the step is tithing. And then I'm going to totally ignore my homily on tithing, and I'm going to go to another issue that's present in the church, and I'm going to talk about that. So I'm going to be like 3 removed from it all today. I'm not going to preach what I'm supposed to preach twice. All right, and I want to talk to you about a very serious issue because it's out there. And I want to take it off your shoulders, and I want to pick it up and put it on my shoulders, and I want to set you guys truly free, like we said in our opening prayer. I'm excited because we're starting a new year. We're like a school in the church. We start the year when the school year starts. So we had our staff retreat, a month ago, and we have all that we are planning to do, all we heard God telling us to do in the church this whole year, and we're like starting like right now. And so I'm so excited about that because I believe what God's going to do in Holy Redeemer this year is truly amazing. I really believe it. And I did a wedding just an hour or 2 ago, and wow, what a beautiful couple, what a beautiful life we expect them to have. So I'm excited about that too. So I really am truly excited. But I want to talk to you about abuse in the church today. I want to talk to you about priest abuse, about bishops who cover it up, about bishops who abuse and that kind of thing. And I think when I was on vacation, Father Bob McGraw touched on it as a priest and on behalf of priests to really say how sorry he was and how sorry we are in the leadership of the church for what's going on. I talked to Father Ron Anderson last night in the confessional over here, and he said he talked about this last week in like Ortonville, and people came up and said, Thanks for talking about that, because it was really weighing on us, and now we feel like we can let it go. And so I want to give you hope, I want to give you faith, and I want to give you the opportunity to let go of this. I'm only going to touch on it, so if you want to talk a little more about it after Mass, I'll make myself available. If anyone wants to go a little further, I'll meet over here in this wing with you after Mass, after I shake hands. But I'm going to, like I said, just touch on it because, boy, I have absolutely no control and absolutely no authority in this church. When the Pope wants to do something, up till now, I've been a priest for 15 years or more, he's never called me. He's never said, Steve, what do you think? What should we do? And so I have authority right here in this local parish, and my focus is right here in this local parish. And so I want to talk to you about your pastor, and I want to talk to you about your church, because as we look out into the bigger world, we feel helpless, we feel hopeless, we feel like there's nothing we can say or do that's going to make a difference. But when we look here, when we look at Holy Redeemer, we can make all the difference in the world. And we've been doing that. We've been doing everything we can to make all the difference in the world. And when it comes to all that Holy Redeemer has been through in the past, I want to go ahead as your pastor and go ahead and address the issue. Try to allow you to just leave it here with me and take it off your shoulders as much as I can. One, I want to tell you this. Way before any of this happened, about a month ago, 2 months ago, we called the diocese and we said, hey, we have a transition happening in our staff, and we want to make sure we're 100% on the Virtus program. And so the director of the Virtus program for the diocese and for all the churches in Lansing came here to Holy Redeemer and met with us. Virtus is the program called Keeping Our Children Safe. It's about making sure we provide an environment here at Holy Redeemer that's as safe as imaginable for any church whatsoever. We're human beings and we can't guarantee perfection, but we can take all the steps possible to make sure we've done everything imaginable to make Holy Redeemer's environment safe and holy. And so she came out here and she's like, wow, you guys are really doing a great job. You guys are really ahead of the game. And she looked at what we were doing and gave us maybe a few tips on what we could do here or there, but really what she noticed was here at Holy Redeemer, there's no opportunity for any abuse to happen. We aggressively, faithfully, holy ways make sure that this is truly a safe environment. And you can be aware of that. And you can be aware of everything we're doing in our religious ed programs, in our youth programs, in our church as a whole. So don't look at the bigger church because we have no authority, we have no control, we have no say. Jesus is in control of the bigger church. And we're going to leave it and truly trust God. We're going to say, God, all our trust is in you. But when it comes to this place, I'll listen to you all day long, and we'll work together all day long, and we'll do everything imaginable to just absolutely eliminate any chance at all for this to happen. I'm 100% against it. I'm a father of 3 myself. I'm a grandfather of 4, and it's just unimaginable to me, unspeakable that any of this would be in the Church of God, and it definitely is not here at Holy Redeemer. So keep your eyes here. We can make all inappropriate behavior almost as close as humanly possible impossible. And again, if anyone wants to talk to me, I'm going to be available over here after Mass, and just to give you that opportunity to talk and for me to listen. The bishop has prepared a Mass of reparation, some adoration for reparation. If anyone wants to look on the diocesan website and go and pray for our church. The only caution I'd give you is if you're a political person, lots of us are. Anyone here really political? Lots of people really political. Any really strong Republicans or Democrats here? You're going to have the hardest time because right now this is a political issue. What's going on are people who are politically against Pope Francis, turning an issue we should aggressively as a whole, as a church, try to address and to solve this and to end it and to totally do away with it. People who have been politically against Pope Francis from the beginning are trying to divide Holy Mother Church. The greatest sin there is to divide Holy Mother Church. You might want to take a break from the politics and do what the Pope is doing and praying. When the Pope says, I'm not going to talk, not one word, he's not talking about the abuse crisis. He'll talk all day long about that, and he'll talk to anybody about that. When he says, I'm not going to say one word, it means to somebody who politically is trying to use this issue to score political points against him. He's not going to be involved in politics, but he will talk all day long about ending abuse in the Catholic Church. I believe that with all my heart. We've done everything we can here. I have a prayer that Father Andrew gave us. Do you have it, Daniel? Can you put it up on the screen? Let's try to pray this together for those. I read this prayer and I said, am I the only one who secretly feels this way? And I showed it to Daniel, and he said, I feel this every day. And so maybe some of you feel this way. Let's pray this prayer together. How much I must criticize you, my church, and yet how much I love you. You have made me suffer more than anyone, and yet I owe more to you than anyone. I should like to see you destroyed, and yet I need your presence. You have given me much scandal, and yet you alone have made me understand holiness. Never in this world would I have seen anything more compromised, more false, yet never have I touched anything more pure, more generous, or more beautiful. Countless times I have felt like slamming the door of my soul in your face, and yet every night I have prayed that I might die in your sure arms. No, I cannot be free of you, for I am one with you, even if not completely you. Then too, where would I go? To build another church? But I could not build one without the same defects, for they are my defects. And again, if I were to build another church, it would be my church, not Christ Church. No, I am old enough. I know better. Amen. I hope that has helped to touch a little bit on it. I hope if this has been something you've worried about, that you feel at least that we too are praying all the time. We take this with such seriousness and we address it locally here. I pray that you really know that and believe that. And I'm going to try to touch now a little bit on what I was supposed to say the second time I avoided my homily. All right? So if you want to talk to me there, if you want to make an appointment, come and see me. So I told you about the Philippines already, how that priest said, don't ever rob the poor of their tithe, because everyone's called to tithe and everyone can do it. How do you do the tithe? How are we able to do it when we're all so stretched, when we're also financially unable to do it? We pay the tithe first, off the top. First check we write when we write our bills is the tithe. First thing we do before we do anything else is we pay the tithe, because the tithe belongs to God. It doesn't belong to us. I'm going to say this. I was watching a video on YouTube. It was just the dumbest ever video, but it was so cool. It was about a man doing experiments on a black fox. And what he was doing with the black fox was he wouldn't let any of the foxes who were aggressive to humans breed. He just kept them away from, the other sex, and he only allowed foxes that were kind or gentle with human beings to breed. And foxes can breed every year, so you can get 20 generations in 20 years. And after 20 years, he had bred a very friendly fox. But the fox, has a fairly long snout, and he's got these beady little eyes and these pointy ears. But as he bred the fox to be friendlier and friendlier to humans every generation, the fox's look changed. The fox's snout went from long to short. The fox's eyes went from like beady to big and round. And the fox's ears went from pointy to droopy. It looks like my dog Charlie, the cute little King Charles Spaniel. And he's like, how weird is that? When we bred out aggressiveness, we bred in cuteness. And so they went together, and he's like, what does one have to do with another? And I think the same thing happens in our faith when we choose to breed out of ourselves any selfishness, any decision that there's a part of me I won't give to God. Then we breed the world in and we breed God out. But when we say, I'm going to be all in and follow God in this decision, we begin to change. In this decision, we begin to change. In this decision, we begin to change. And when we're all in discipleship, all in on service, all in on tithing, all in on being engaged, all in on prayer, all in on sharing our faith, then all of a sudden we've changed. We don't look like the black fox anymore. We look like Jesus. We look like one of his disciples. We look like what Jesus meant when he said, you are the light of the world. One of my deacons, his name was David Hornberger, before I was Catholic, was becoming a deacon, and then we preached the tithe once. And it's funny that I was preaching it because I made about $20,000 a year. I had 3 kids and a wife that stayed home. I got help from WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, and we ate cheese from them. And the newsboys bought our Christmas presents. We were that poor, but I tithed 10%. And so I was preaching that homily, and David Hornberger says, okay, I want to do it, but I can't. I got this van, I got credit card bills, I can tithe 2% now, but when I pay off that van next year, that's going into the tithe. And when I pay off the credit cards in a year or so, that's going to go into the tithe. And I just forgot about it. It was like a year later, maybe 2 years later. I forgot how long it was. David comes up to me one Sunday morning with the goofiest smile on his face. And he's all excited and he wants to tell me something. I said, David, I can tell you want to tell me something. What is it? He said, this is the first Sunday that I'm tithing 10%. And he thought that was the best thing in the world. It was like he had won the lotto. And so he kept practicing that, and from then on he didn't add things to his plate until he had first paid off the top his tithe. That way it always fit into his budget. One day I became Catholic, and I left that church, and it was very difficult and very hard. And David was acting like he hated me. He was really mean. And really what he was really hurt. I was his pastor, I had been his spiritual director, and I was leaving that church and becoming Catholic. And it just didn't make sense to him, and he was hurt. He would have nothing to do with me, and he wouldn't call me Father. He called me Mr. Anderson. And so what do you do with that? You say, I love you, David, we'll pray for you. And then what happened was, about 6 months later, I get this phone call. David worked for EDS, and I think it was EDS, and their company went public. I think he owned stock for like 25 cents, and the stock went public, and all of a sudden it was all worth like $10 or $25 or something like that. So David calls, this guy who's like so mad at me, and he says, Father Steve. And I'm like, David? You called me Father Steve? You're calling me? He goes, oh my gosh, our stock went public. I'm worth $1.2 million. And I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Thanks for calling me. He's like, Father, it's because I tithe. It's because I tithe. I know it is. God won't be outgiven. And I'm like, praise God. I never believed in doing math that way. But, if you're willing to give, God's willing to give too. Let me close with a story from Bridget. Bridget is a member of our parish. She worked in the Catholic Church. She's a teacher. And she made a little bit of money because she works in the church, and she figured she'd give of her time, she would give of her talent, but she gave enough as far as she was concerned with regards to the tithe. She already was given enough. We had a mission here, and at the mission we talked, she went to a work group, and in that work group they were talking about tithing, and she's like, oh, I already give enough. And when they were talking about tithing, she said she felt tingly all over, and her stomach just really turned, and she realized God was calling her, and so she said, I paid my tithe first, off the top. And I did it for a little while, and I began to notice something. There was money at the end of the month. There never had been money at the end of the month before, and now all of a sudden, I was able to pay off the top, and there was money at the end of the month. She said, because I worked in the Catholic Church, I thought I didn't have to tithe, but I realized now I was just robbing myself of God's blessing. I have a lot more in the bulletin. I have a whole insert there on all kinds of different things. Wichita, a whole diocese that tithes, and all their schools are open. All the schools are full. All the schools have a waiting list. All the schools are free. All the schools are Holy Redeemer schools open, full, waiting list, and free in Wichita, Kansas, in that diocese. Not only that, the seminaries are full, the seminaries are free, and they don't have a priest shortage. When we follow God's example, when we allow God's breeding to be in us, we change from the long snout to the short snout. We change from a diocese that is suffering and without to a diocese that is blessed in every way in God's perfect will. And so that's our faith. I don't know why Catholics don't want to hear it as a rule, but we have a lot of people in our church now that are tithing, and they invite you to join with them. Would you join me? Would you join them in this new way as faithful stewards, faithful disciples, taking all the steps to change and transform our lives in ways we can only imagine? That's our faith. Those are the steps. That's our discipleship. And what a wonderful discipleship, what a wonderful faith